Okay, let's get into it. Today we're doing a deep dive into Ernest Hemingway's first novel, The Sun Also Rises, from way back in 1926.
That's right. And we've been looking through quite a bit of analysis, summaries, character notes.
Yeah, pulling up plot points, especially from chapters like 2, 4, 7, and 9,
Yeah.
looking at themes, key quotes, the whole package.
Our goal really is to get under the skin of this book,
Huh.
to understand the complexities of love, identity.
And that feeling of disillusionment, right, the whole lost generation thing. We see it through these American and British expats in Europe after World War I.
And specifically their trip to Pamplona for the San Fermín festival. That's kind of the centerpiece.
Definitely. So the setting, post-war Europe, it's not just wallpaper, is it? It shapes everything.
Oh, absolutely. It's this landscape of loss. It fundamentally changes how these characters see love, life, everything.
And then you drop them into Pamplona during the fiesta.
Right, the Festival of San Fermín. It's vibrant, chaotic.
And it just seems to crank up the tension, doesn't it? It acts like a pressure cooker for all their emotions.
It really does. There's this initial excitement about the trip, the bullfighting.
Yeah.
You feel that anticipation.
But once they're actually in Pamplona, it gets messy.
Heat,
Mystic, like.
but also really tense.
The excitement sort of sours, or maybe just reveals the cracks that were already there.
Yeah, that makes sense. It exposes the underlying problems rather than letting them escape.
Though there is that moment, isn't there? The fishing trip in Chapter 4, Jake and Bill go off to Burgett.
Right. That bit feels so different.
It's this pocket of calm. Nature offers this stark contrast to the city, the parties, the drama.
A genuine moment of peace almost, away from all the complicated relationships.
Exactly, a temporary reprieve.
Okay, so we have this backdrop, war weariness, intense festivity, and these brief moments of escape. Let's zoom in on the people, starting with this whole lost generation concept.
Yeah, the novels often call it like a poignant exploration of these expatriates. And Hemingway himself was part of that scene in 1920s Paris.
He was right in the middle of it. The lost generation. It's more than just a catchy phrase. It's a core theme. It captures that generation that came of age during the First World War.
They saw things.
Unimaginable trauma, yeah. Old values shattered. And they were left with this deep sense of disillusionment, questioning everything, searching for meaning in a world that felt broken.
So these characters, they're carrying that weight. They're not straightforward heroes. Let's talk about Jake Barnes, our narrator. He's got this specific wound.
His war entry, yeah. The impotence, it's central.
Yeah.
But it's often read as more than just physical.
Like a metaphor.
Exactly. Some see it as reflecting the whole generation's trauma, a kind of metaphorical impotence and inability to connect or maybe create in the old ways. It certainly defines his relationship with Brett Ashley.
That intense but impossible love.
Right, and you see that aimlessness in him, that dissatisfaction. It's very lost generation.
Okay, let's talk about Lady Brett Ashley. She looms large, especially in chapters like 2 and 7. What's your deal? She seems both magnetic and kind of destructive.
Brett is fascinating.
Yeah.
And yeah, full of contradictions. She seems so free, so independent, but her life is just this whirlwind of messy relationships.
She definitely stirs things up with the men around her.
Desire, jealousy, conflict. She ignites it all. But you also get the sense she's driven by her own pain, maybe the pain of desires she can't actually fulfill.
Even when she leaves Pedro Romero later on in Chapter 7.
Yeah, that moment feels like a glimpse of self-awareness. She sees the damage, maybe understands her own turmoil a bit more. It shows the consequences.
Then there's Robert Cohn. He feels like an outsider in the group.
He does. He comes in with maybe more traditional ideas about romance, about life, more idealistic perhaps.
But his fixation on Brett causes so much friction.
A huge amount. His idealism clashes hard with the cynicism of the others. And the whole experience, especially in Spain, seems to really shatter those ideals for him. He confronts a much harsher reality.
It's interesting how his initial optimism just curdles.
It really does. It highlights the prevailing mood of the others.
But amidst all that romantic chaos, Jake has Bill Gorton. Their friendship feels different, solid.
Absolutely. That bond, especially clear on the fishing trip in Chapter 4, feels like one of the few truly authentic connections in the book.
It's a refuge for Jake, isn't it?
Definitely. A break from the Brett drama, the rivalries. It shows the importance of that male friendship, that camaraderie in the middle of everything else.
Okay, so these relationships, they lead us straight into the theme of love. And it's not exactly portrayed as simple or sweet here.
Oh, not at all. If anything, the novel tears down those idyllic notions. Love is shown as dangerous, complicated, full of pain and uncertainty.
Unattainable love seems central.
Hugely central. These deep emotional conflicts, they drive so much of the story. It's a pretty bleak picture of romance, really. Passion leads to suffering, almost inevitably.
And tied into that is the search for identity and that undercurrent of disillusionment we mentioned. They all seem lost, looking for something.
They are. And they're trying to figure out who they are against this backdrop of post-war Europe. Exciting, yes, but also melancholic.
Their disillusionment is a direct reflection of the times, you think?
Yeah, that post-war skepticism, this cynicism, they've lost their innocence. They're questioning the old ways, trying to find some meaning after everything was turned upside down.
You mentioned Jake's injury earlier. How does the novel explore masculinity through that and through the other men?
Well, Jake's impotence is key, as we said. It forces a look at how men cope with trauma. You see Jake trying to find some structure, some purpose in his work, his life in Paris.
Compared to someone like Mike Campbell.
Exactly. Mike seems much more adrift, almost defined by his lack of direction, his drinking. It shows different responses to those psychological scars.
And speaking of drinking, it's constant. Alcohol feels like it's everywhere in this book.
It really is. It's clearly a coping mechanism. A big one.
Escapism.
Yeah, escapism, numbing the pain, trauma, heartbreak, disillusionment. They drink to blunt the edges, maybe to fill a void.
And the fact that they're expats, living away from home. Does that add to their sense of being adrift?
I think so. Being American or British in Paris or Spain, it's part of their identity crisis.
Yeah.
There's this sense of displacement, maybe feeling disconnected from their roots and from the place they're in.
Like a self-imposed exile.
Kind of. It mirrors their internal alienation, their search for belonging, which seems pretty fruitless most of the time.
We touched on nature with the fishing trip. Does it function more broadly as an escape?
I'd say so. Nature represents a kind of temporary sanctuary from all the urban disillusionment, the messy social stuff. Those moments in the countryside offer peace, renewal.
A contrast to the superficiality of their lives sometimes.
Precisely. It highlights a yearning for something more authentic, something calmer.
Okay, and we can't talk about this book without talking about the bullfighting. It's so vivid. What's its significance?
It's huge. It works on multiple levels, symbolically. It's about the thrill of life, but also the reality of pain, suffering, death.
So it reflects their own lives.
In a way, yes. Their own engagement with danger, their search for passion, for authenticity, but also their conflicts, that constant tension between life and loss that runs through everything. And Romero, the matador, represents something pure in contrast.
Let's shift to Hemingway's style for a moment. It's so distinctive. That clipped, direct prose.
Oh, yeah. Terse, economical.
Yeah.
It captures things so immediately. Very little fat on it.
And the dialogue. It can be witty, but there's often something sad or cynical underneath.
Definitely. It often masks deeper feelings. He also uses symbolism effectively: water for purification, the bowls for primal energy, passion.
And the structure isn't exactly conventional, is it?
No, it mirrors the fragmented feel of their lives, the uncertainty. It challenges those neat narrative arcs.
There are some lines from the book that just stick with you, like Brett saying, "Don't you ever get the feeling that all your life is going by and you're not taking advantage of it?"
That one really hits home, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It perfectly captures that restlessness, that anxiety of the lost generation, feeling adrift, fearing you're missing out on something. Life itself, maybe.
Yeah. And Jake's thought, it is awfully easy to be hard-boiled about everything in the daytime, but at night, it is another thing.
That shows the vulnerability beneath the surface.
Yeah.
That cynical shell they put up, it cracks, especially when they're alone at night. It's that contrast between the public face and private pain.
And Brett just saying simply, "I've been so miserable," for someone who seems so vivacious.
It carries so much weight. It's a glimpse behind the facade, isn't it? A hint at the deep unhappiness driving her actions. It stops you from seeing her as just, a femme fatale. She's suffering too.
And that exchange between Jake and Brett. How do you feel? I feel like hell.
So blunt, so devastating. It just sums up the wreck of their impossible love, the emotional toll it takes. They know they love each other, but they also know it just can't work.
So, thinking about the novel as a whole, what are the big questions it leaves us with? Why does it still resonate?
Well, it definitely forces you to ask, what is love? Especially in a world that's been turned upside down. How do people connect when the old rules don't apply?
And why does love seem so hopeless for these characters?
That's a key question. Why does genuine connection feel so out of reach for them? Is it the war, their own flaws, the society they're in, Probably a mix of all three.
It certainly doesn't offer easy answers or happy endings.
No, and that's part of its power, I think.
Yeah.
It presents these bleak realities, the pain, the confusion, without trying to smooth them over or offer comfort.
And that comparison some critics make to Romeo and Juliet, like this is an older, more jaded version.
Yeah, the idea that youthful ideals about love get tarnished by experience, by the disillusionments of adult life, it suggests a less optimistic take on romance as people get older and more scarred.
Okay, so wrapping up our deep dive on The Sun Also Rises, it's just such a powerful, raw look at a generation dealing with huge loss, disillusionment.
Absolutely. Seeking meaning in temporary thrills, navigating these incredibly tangled relationships, all set against that uncertain post-war world.
It really captures a moment in time, but the core issues feel timeless.
They do. Loss, the search for identity, the complexities of love. These things don't go away.
Which leads to a final thought for you, the listener. Think about how those themes resonate today. Our world keeps changing. We face our own kinds of disillusionment. How do we navigate relationships and find purpose when things feel chaotic?
Yeah, can you see parallels between our time and the experiences of that lost generation? It's definitely something to mull over.